Hi, grant writing peeps. Dr. E here at the beginning of week 4. And our topic for this week is need statements. And our work on the grant is to do our project drafts of our project description and of our need statement and to lock down our funding sources. So if each of the groups gets these tasks done, we'll be in good shape. I want to talk first about needs and need statements. Now you're going to read a lot about this in the Carson Fox reading this week, which is very good. But remember what I've talked about before about the logic of grant writing. There is a problem or need in your community. You create a project that will address that need. You develop goals and objectives to show how this project will meet the need. And then the budget actionalizes, however you want to say it, operationalizes, reflects those activities. They're going to end the project that'll meet the need. So there needs to be a clear line between the problem that you're trying to solve and the budget, which is where the money comes in. Now, talked about needs, talks about problems. Grants always start with problems, at least in the nonprofit world. There is an issue we're trying to address. Now, the Food Bank of Corpus Christi, and there's great data in the video from last Friday about how many people they serve. They serve more than 100,000 people. They had serve all kinds of cities and in rural areas and things like that. But so they work with a lot of different people and they notice certain problems. And again, you'll need to watch the video to get this. But essentially what they've noticed is that people who live in rural areas, particularly elderly people who are poor and place-bound, tend to lack access to a lot of food, but particularly fresh fruit and vegetables, which are important for a variety of reasons. So what we need to do is build a needs statement that demonstrates that the problem exists, that it hurts people, so that then when we describe the project, we see why the project's important. Every project sounds good, but if there's not a reason to do the project, it's not going to get funded. So I'm not going to read them out before, but last week we looked at 3 different grants. One was called the TDA grant, the Texas Department of Agriculture grant, and it contained some statement about nutrition. We looked at the Kitchen Captains grant, which focused on the risk of diabetes for children in the coastal bend, particularly Latino children. And then we looked at the Hillcrest program, which was looking at problems with housing in a particular area in town. So each of these did a pretty good job of describing the need. I invite you to look back at those. But what you want to do is you want to describe the need and put it in context. That's what your reading does. So I'm going to show you some ways that you can look at the need. Now, we're going to get on, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get on the census. This is easy to get to. It's www.census.gov. That's our website as well. So, so a little bit about it. So, as you learned from the video, the Coastal Bend serves, the Food Bank of the Coastal Bend serves 11 counties. Corpus Christi is the anchor. It's the biggest population, but they go down nearly as far as Laredo. They go up near San Antonio and they go very far west as well. Big area. And the people that they're trying to help particularly are rural, elderly people who lack access to food. So how can we look at that? Now, what I'm going to do is I've just pulled the ideas from a couple of counties, Brooks County and Jim Wells County. They're a couple of the rural counties that the food bank served. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get on the census and we're going to look for a tool called Quick Facts. And we're going to search and it takes us to Quick Facts. Now there's a lot of ways to use the census, but this is a tool that'll make your life easy, and I'll show you why in a minute. So let's look at Jim Wells County, Texas. And we get the population. You get people 65 and older are 15.8%. The United States. So it puts it next to the United States as well. So you have things like income and poverty. The median income in Jim Wells County is 47,000, which is more than 20,000 lower than the United States median income. Let's look at the people who live in poverty. 21% of poverty, almost double the national average as well. So that gives us some context as well. So let's look at kind of Brooks County as well. Brooks County, Texas. We're going to add that there, add those as well. So you get, again, so you see people 18, more of the population in Brooks County is older than the national rate as well. You go through and lots of different things you can look at. Notice the percentage of people who complete high school is way lower than the national area as well. Income and poverty. Look at this median household income. It is less than half, maybe almost a third, but less than half of the United States median income, and 28% people in poverty. And just for comparison, let's look at the state of Texas as a whole. So I wanted to let's move these around. I'm going to just X this out. I'm going to add the United States again. So they're kind of lined up in a row. So let's look at some things. Let's look at, we could look at race and Hispanic origin as well. We could look at veterans. We could look at, but let's look at education. So Jim Wells and Brooks. Let's look at people living with a disability, which can often be health related as well. It's much lower in the United States than it is either in Texas or these rural counties as well. Income and poverty, you've got these really low incomes compared to Texas and the rest of the United States as well. The poverty rate is just staggering down here as well. So what we're doing is we're looking at comparison statistics. We're looking at populations in rural counties that the food bank serves. We're comparing them to Texas, and we're comparing them to the United States, because we've talked about rural people who live in poverty. You got a lot of rural people, much more people living over the age of 65, say in Brooks County, or even in Jim Wells County than you do in the rest of the United States. They tend to be poorer than the rest of Texas or the rest of the United States. And they have more negative health outcomes as well, as shown by the percentage of people with disability, and is shown by the lack of health insurance. So that's one aspect to the need statement. You can do that, and you can show that there is a lot of need in the areas that the food bank serves. That's one tool. Another way to look at this would be to look at the United States Department of Agriculture. And let's just look at the term food deserts, because we're talking about, again, lack of access to food. And food deserts, well, there's actually a definition here. So you look at, you've got these tools, food access research outlets, and mapping food deserts in the United States. So you've got what is a food desert, and it's a food desert if there is a poverty rate of 20% or greater, or a median family income below 80% of the statewide metropolitan low income, low access, at least 500 people or 33% of the population live more than a mile or 10 miles from a rural census tract as well. So we got a definition of what a food desert is. And then, so let's look at the actual atlas. Now, this is a clickable map here. So we can move these things around. So let's go ahead and look at, say, the Corpus Christi area as well. And something that people are surprised is there are food deserts actually right in the middle of the city of Corpus Christi. People don't realize that, but people live in food deserts in the middle of the city as well. So these green areas, there are as access to food, but look at all these chunks of the city where they don't have access to food. And then we pull out farther, and we see more and more areas that just don't have access to food. And then we have add these other things, low income and low access of more than 10 miles, more than 20 miles, low income using vehicle access and things like that. And so what forms is a picture of an area that is really, there's not a lot of access to food in the area. So think about terms like food insecurity, food deserts, lack of access. So you get some statistics from the USDA. You can also get a map if you want to use a visual as well. And one other thing I'll have you look at, and there are lots of others as well. But I'd suggest you look at the Center for Disease Control, and there are others. Harsh and Fox talk about them as well. But when you talk about not getting access to fruit and vegetables regularly, it's a form of malnutrition. And so a good chunk of people are suffering from malnutrition. So, and it's called micronutrient malnutrition. So what is, so you can get information about it. So it describes what it is, some of their initiatives and things like that as well. But it's important to learn about why micronutrient malnutrition is important. So we see iron deficiency, mineral deficiencies, and we have all this stuff about micronutrients, why it matters, iron, folate, vitamin A, iodine, zinc, things like that. Talk about all these things that are not being treated properly if you don't have access to fruits and vegetables, if you have micronutrient malnutrition. And it's really bad in South Texas. It's worse in the rural areas. And again, for a number of reasons. One, a can of green beans costs less than fresh green beans. Okay, there's nothing wrong with a can of green beans, but it's less healthy and you lose half the nutrition when it gets canned as well. So there's cost, but there's also access as well. If I get a pound of green beans, say, donated to me from HEB, I've got to get it out to a client tomorrow, or it's not good anymore. So these rural delivery programs, these programs where the food bank actually goes into these communities and drops, literally gives the food out. They find out where the people are and they give the food where they need it, where the people need it as well. So these rural delivery programs that focus on fresh fruits and vegetables are very important. So I've talked a little bit about the need, how to build the need statement, and you build it with information, statistics, maybe some stories, maybe some anecdotes. Karch and Fox talk about how to do that. So one of the businesses of this week is to develop research for a need statement. And that's what we're doing on Tuesday. We're going to all of us together look up some information, some research about the need for some of the programs that the food bank has. Everybody's going to work on that so that the need statements groups can look at their own group's work or other people's work and put together a good draft of a need statement. Why these services are important. Why is it important to fund a program that will increase food delivery for rural elderly clients in the Coastal Bend? So everybody's gonna do that Tuesday. And then for the rest of the week, there's obviously there's reading and some other things that we're going to be doing for the business of the class. But Group A is going to focus on a project description, describe what exactly the food bank is doing to increase this, kind of describe this initiative, this program as well. And you can get that data from stuff we've already talked about. You can get that stuff from the food bank website. You get a lot of that data from the tour, watching that video with the tour, watch both videos. You get a lot of information as well. And if you get, of course, if you have any questions, you want to just ask your quarterback to contact Robert, Mr. Morales, and get some more data as well. So Group A is going to be doing that. Group B is going to be creating a draft of a need statement based on research they do of the type that we just talked about, and maybe some of the other research that the class does as a whole on Tuesday. And then Group C is going to finalize their funding source. I've already met with one of the groups as well, and I'm going to contact Mr. Morales after I get done with this video. We're going to try to get those funding sources finalized, and then hopefully we can get that done for the other group and the other team before Friday as well. And then once we've hit on a funder that Mr. Morales approves, I'm going to make a copy of the funding criteria of that particular foundation and send it around to everybody in your team. And Group C is going to look at the funding criteria and try to honestly and accurately come up with ways that we can demonstrate to that foundation that what the food bank is doing is a good match for that particular grant. So on Tuesdays, there's nothing specifically due for the individual groups, but I have what's due on Friday. And so the communicators for each group need to literally communicate with the other members of the group to get a plan so they can get the work done, so they can submit whatever is due for your group on Friday. So to sum up, we're all learning about need statements. We're all looking at some research strategies to develop need statements, because we're going to have to do that our own as grant writers and on our own as individual grants. Then Group A is coming up with a good draft of project description. Group B is going to come up with the need statement, and Group C is going to finalize our funder and is going to come up with some language to demonstrate why our project meets with the goals of that funding agency. So good work in store. I appreciate your time as always. If you have questions, let me know, and keep on writing, persevere, and keep the faith.